I welcome everyone to most likely, well, this is the introduction to level 3. I say most likely, meaning I don't know if we'll get to anything all that official, but we might. I really don't have much of a plan. Level 3 is very interesting, so we'll just see how things unfold. Say the date for what it's worth, September 6, 2020. We went through level 1, meditations 1 through 12, level 2, meditations 13 to 24. And level 1, remember, is focusing more on the physical body. Energy, of course, but it's very two-dimensional. You're focused on physical anatomical locations primarily as your guide to have you move through the energy. As you get to level 2, you start transitioning your awareness to the more subtle energy grids. You start focusing on chakras, not as physical locations, but as actual energy vortices or spheres of energy. And then you're focusing on the subtle geometries, the meridian system, and just the idea of an etheric body. As that's happening, you're naturally starting to move your consciousness away from the physical and into the more subtle. We talked about stages of samadhi, so as we move into level 3, technically lesson 11, stages of samadhi. We've covered some of those. We'll cover more of those. I'm not sure exactly what we'll get to tonight, honestly. But the idea in level 3 is to focus on deeper stages of samadhi, out-of-body experiences, advanced sexual energy practices, and a lot of focus on ascension and cosmic consciousness. So the preface to getting into all this, challenging, honestly, because what starts happening, if it hasn't happened for some of you already, is you're just not really in your body as you start focusing on level 2. But Anahata is meant to keep you fully grounded, right? So when you're doing level 1, that just, hey, I won't say names, but welcome those that just joined in. I haven't said much yet. We're just kind of pacing into level 3, and we'll see how far we get. Consider this an introduction to level 3 for sure. So level 1, we're really grounded, even when we're doing the patterns of the star, the full 12 meditations, you're still staying really connected to your body, even as energy is going up higher. And that's really good because I like it. I like how I feel that way. When I start doing a lot of level 2, and then I'm really, like right now for you guys, focusing almost more than I want to, honestly, on level 3, it's really hard to stay grounded. I remember what it's like in my early 20s. It was like, oh, this is why I don't want to talk and don't want to speak and barely want to eat food, and all I want to do is sit and meditate all day, and all I want to do is stay in samadhi, and I'm not really in my body or in this planet. It's challenging. You're not fully in your body. I absolutely feel different practicing level 3 techniques. And I almost wish I didn't have to do it, but I can't teach it without putting my attention on it. I don't know how far I'll personally go with all these themes, probably over the next month or so. I think we'll probably make it through all the teachings within the next 3 to 4 weeks for sure. So yeah, during that time, I'm putting all of my attention basically out of body, higher chakras, spirit, God, and that's awesome on the higher levels, but physically, it's very challenging because there's not a whole lot of energy in the body, and there's a minimal desire to be in the physical plane. So let's talk about that. Level 3 is asking you to just put all of your attention on God for the most part. We have sexual energy teachings, but they really, when they come down to it, they're all about union with God as well. And then there's the deeper samadhi teachings are all about union with God. The out-of-body experience we're going to talk about today, I'm sure, to some degree. And that can be about flying around other planes, but really, when I originally wrote the Sacred Geometry Meditation, the original title, when I first started writing it, like many, like that was, excuse me, get a cough drop in there. So yeah, well, hold on. The name of the original book, but even before the Anahat teachings came to me, just as I was writing about out-of-body experiences and the journey back to God, uh, the book was called Flying Towards God as God. I never published it as that, but I recently saw the original copy of that in a box here or whatever. But Flying Towards God as God. So knowing yourself as spirit out of your body, putting both eyes, you don't really have physical eyes, of course, but you're putting all of your attention on God, and that's all that matters. So it's hard to do this because you have to function in the world, right? So if you're doing 10 minutes of meditation in the morning and you're focusing on your breathing, then you're working to accomplish something. And you're moving in the right direction. But when you don't care about anything but just pure union with the divine, that's why we're onlinemonastery.com, right? So when you're doing just that, when you're in a monastery, you don't care about anything but your experience of God. You can be pretty extreme with that. So another caution as you're going through the levels here, as you start doing level 2, you'll start having experiences. One of you, I'll read it without mentioning names. Said of level 2, it's amazing, different meditations are more impactful on certain days. The most vivid experience this week was an experience of brilliant white light. It was almost blinding even with eyes closed. It also had an element of lightning electrically charged. So that's great feedback. It's good to hear because that shows you're tapping in to what I call the vibrations, right? But it is fueled by all of that light. It is the Kundalini Shakti. It's all really the same chi, the same energy. But when that really awakens, again, it's hard to stay in your body. It's hard to focus when you're having blinding light in your forehead and all this electricity, if you want to use that word, it's not really right electricity, but it feels like you're being plugged into an electrical socket when the vibrations kick in. When they're strong enough, you can leave your body, and it's really that simple, but it's not simple. It's actually hard to make happen. So you have to want that kind of thing, and you have to be in a place in your life where you can focus on it. So why do we focus on anything? Because we value it, right? If you love something, you put your attention on it. If you value something, you put your attention on it, which means there's desire for it. So Ram Dass said, the way to know God is to want to know God. If you don't want to know God, want to know God. Right? So level 1 might be like wanting to want to know God. Level 2 should be practiced as wanting to know God. Level 3 is just this intense, burning desire to experience your union with the beloved. And you don't care about the world anymore. The problem with that, while you're still doing human, is you have to function here. And that's where the Anahat meditation system came to me, being fully ascended, we start usually fully grounded, fully open to spirit, and fully open to spirit in the higher, and then with a fully open heart. So fully grounded, fully open to spirit, with the fully open heart. Now, even when you're doing level 2 and level 3, especially level 3, actually, here's the thing about level 3. I said it last time, but I'll start to explain. You start to disconnect the energy grids from the body. Right? It's like as if your etheric body is out in front of you and the grids go with it, and you're starting to transfer your consciousness to the more subtle levels. Now, why would you do that, right? I would rather say, why would you want to stay in the physical plane? But even it doesn't matter why, the fact is we do. Right? It's all about desire. So while you're wanting the new spouse, the new car, the new home, the new job, more money, better health, to make your body look better, all the things we do, which is, for most people, 100% of your time is spent on that stuff. Those who are going deeper into the teachings of anything, spirituality, religion, you dedicate some time each day to God. But in the exoteric, the more external forms of religion, It's still very physical, right? You go to the church, you wear certain clothing, you care what your kids look like, you put money in the tithing pot. Uh, you offer some prayers, but you're still really 100% human. Then some people do certain kinds of meditation that maybe start to put their attention on spirit, but usually the attention isn't on spirit. The attention is on the spiritual practice, right? I focus on the candle flame, or I focus on the statue of Buddha. It's spiritual, but it's still really physical, right? Because if you focus, like we talked about the earlier stages of samadhi, the Tark samadhi, your eyes are usually open and you're focusing on a physical object of consciousness. That's preparation for the journey to God, because you're developing concentration so you can concentrate on God. Right? But most people are getting into meditation or mindfulness, right? Because they want to reduce stress, they want to be more present, they want to relax, with a better health, whatever, but they're not doing it to know God. And the external focus is not on absolute bliss consciousness. When they evolve or advance enough in their practice, then we start moving into the vichar levels of practice, or eventually vichar samadhi, where the eyes are closed and we're focusing on internal ideas like the internal mantra. Level 2 is a lot of that, right? We're focusing on the subtle geometries. The attention is just moving inwards and more subtle. But the real question is why? And if you desire the more subtle, if you want to know those higher planes, for whatever reason, awesome, your attention is going in that direction. But consider these kind of brackish waters, right? Where like the fresh water mixes with the salt water, in case you don't know what brackish is. While you're in the interim, while you're starting to take your attention out of your body, while you are, and I'll work to explain this, like I said, over time, while you're kind of disconnecting. There's actual Anahat meditation techniques that do this. I don't know if we'll get to them today. I don't think so. We disconnect the energy grids from the physical, and we really are only ascending during this time. You're predominantly putting all your attention on the third eye region or on spirit, and you stop descending. You just forget about it. You forget about the 6-pointed star in the body, and you start moving all of that, your awareness essentially, out of the body, putting all your attention on God. You'll do it if you want to do it, and anybody who seeks will find, right? It's like a promise. If you really are determined, then you'll get there. In A Course in Miracles, you essentially do all the work to get to God's door, using figurative language, or I think that's the way to say it. In Buddhism, when Buddha was leaving his body his final out-of-body experiences, Buddha's his death basically, but they don't call that death. In Hinduism, it's called the Maha Samadhi, the yogi's great final exit from her body. Some of Buddha's last words were, "Oh monks," right? That's who he was training. It was a complete monastic order when it started, Buddhism. And he said, "Oh monks," bhikkhus, what they were called, beggars, said, "Oh bhikkhus, oh beggars, oh monks, work out your own salvation diligently." He said, "All things are impermanent and changing. You're not going to find what you're looking for in the physical plane. Work out your own salvation diligently." Right? And I could I haven't thought about this, but there's other scriptures and other sources that say the same thing. It's in Christianity. Christianity says, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. So, but work out your own salvation is in Christianity. Yet in A Course in Miracles, there's a beautiful teaching that God himself takes the final step. But you do the work, you do the sadhana, the spiritual practice. And most people don't realize how hard that is. We're going to start talking about out-of-body travel. Your ability to have that experience means you need to disconnect from the physical, right? And when I had this happening to me a lot, like almost every night, like literally, I could lie down in bed, put the body to sleep, go body asleep, mind awake, stage 1, invoke the vibration, stage 2, rotate, separate, disconnect from the body, travel, and then return. And do that consciously and voluntarily, basically whenever I wanted. Uh, I had very little responsibility, and when I am doing level 3 now for you guys mostly, and you know, it's enjoyable, but it's like brackish. It's like, yeah, half of me just wants to feel how good it feels to be in my body, and the other half is like, oh, this is so weird. I forgot just how awkward this is to really not be in the physical. So again, a disclaimer, moving into a next major level, or encouragement in how to advance is want to. The great Saint Paramahansa Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna said, when your desire for God, as your desire for God gets stronger and stronger, and you spend, I'm paraphrasing, and you spend more time in spiritual practice, God will take away your responsibilities. But you have to be willing to do that, or it's a very challenging time. In A Course in Miracles, what's happening is you're learning to appreciate what's valuable and understand what's valueless. So everything that, like the 100% of time that people put on the external world, you start realizing it's totally valueless. There's nothing out there. There's strip malls and viruses and global warming. It's a mess right now out there. So if you're thinking about, you know, like, I can't leave my house anyway because of COVID-19. I can't go anywhere because everything is closed. So what a great opportunity actually to reassess your priorities. Maybe there was nothing out there to begin with. Maybe the illusory dream world of Maya, right, of everything out there, it doesn't matter. There's nothing really valuable there. You can convince someone of that, though. They usually have to be really disheartened, really disillusioned, and maybe have gone through a good dark night of the sense. Not dark night of the soul. I can explain those teachings someday, but St. John of the Cross explained the dark night of the sense is getting some sense of spirituality going on. You've experienced some spiritual experience. And then all of a sudden, it's really dark and miserable. I'm trying to say this really brief here. But the idea in a dark night of the sense is that all the things of your senses, the things you can see and feel and touch, there's stuff you can buy, you can go to the mall, you can go to the movie theater, but now you can't do it anymore, right? So especially now, you start realizing all that stuff's being taken away from me. And it seems really, it feels really depressing for someone going through that who doesn't understand. You are on the spiritual path, and you're being asked to do a lot of things, but to separate the valueless from the valuable. Spirit is what's valuable. And what we're being asked to do now is put all of our attention on spirit, on God. Like nothing else matters. You're not doing meditation to be healthy. You're not doing it to sleep better. You're not doing it to have more peace. You're not doing it for tantra, for cool sexual experiences. You're not even doing it for out-of-body experiences. The only thing you really want is, you can use any word for it, but God. And it really doesn't matter what word you use. So there's just a feeling, a longing inside where it's insatiable. Something inside of you knows, I just need God. Yet you can experience the divine, and I think a lot of us, I hope you were, I know I was, when we're doing level 1, I'm feeling the divine presence imminent within all experience, right? It's in my body, it's in my heart. God is everywhere. So don't get me wrong about, were we experiencing the divine? Were we experiencing spirit, energy in level 1? Absolutely. But you're still very connected to your body. Level 2, we're working to experience spirit on the etheric plane. It's not like you go to the etheric plane and God isn't there. God is everywhere. If you ever saw the movie What Dreams May Come with Cuba Gooding Jr. and Robin Williams, highly recommend it if you haven't. Robin Williams is out of his body after death, and he is in, you might say it's like the etheric astral planes that they're playing around in that movie. And he says to his guide, Cuba Gooding Jr., he goes, where's God in the midst of all this? And Cuba Gooding Jr. is like, he's up there somewhere watching out for us, or something like that. It's like very sweet, but really like, don't worry, he's not really here. He's still up there. As if you're going to eventually get to a level higher than the level you're at. The idea is to find God in the level you're at. And that's what level 1 is about your human experience. Find God here and now. Level 2, we're starting to tap into the divine, God, spirit, reality, on the etheric plane, understanding that reality is spirit, not the forms that spirit manifests. Although technically spirit is everything, but like we're going to say God, the thing I'm searching for, the thing I long for is not my body, right? The body, you might say, is made of all that energy, fine, but right, this thing is not the goal of the practice. And when I'm out of my body in the etheric body, being in the etheric body and flying is not the goal of the practice. I'll tell you a story moving into out-of-body experiences. I'll try to tell the whole story. This happened 1997 or so. I had lived at Kripalu Yoga Ashram for about a year. My parents had said, my grandparents, that I can go back to Chinese Medical College if I would just get out of that damn ashram. So my girlfriend at the time, I said, hey, would you like to go on this journey with me across country? We can go anywhere we want. And so long story short, we leave the ashram together. We drive down to Florida to get my car. And so Massachusetts to Florida. On the way, where were we? We stopped at a friend's house in Orlando. Helps me remember the story to remember actually where I was. All right, so yeah, the whole story begins that my friend in Orlando said we could sleep in his house, and they let us sleep in their bedroom. And my friend worked nights at Disney, so he was away. The wife slept in the bedroom of the son, the boy. And so I'm trying to sleep, but I can't sleep. The energy in that room, not the whole house, and they're beautiful people, but the energy in that room was really dark. I'm so sensitive to my environment. And quite often, part of what happened at the ashram is I couldn't live in the ashram. I had to live in the woods because I'm so sensitive to electrical and psychic energy. So that's really bad. And that's going to get worse for you guys, by the way, if you move into level 3. You'll be so sensitive that some stuff really is very uncomfortable to be around. So anyway, I'm in this room and I can't sleep. So I decided I'm going to go outside and just meditate or sleep in the backyard. So I'm lying there, I can't sleep. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to leave my body. like I don't like Orlando anyway. I don't like Florida. My friend's house is funky energy. I'm just out of here. So I put the body into body asleep, mind awake, stage 1. Invoke the vibration, and this is all very conscious. This is not a dream or anything. It's not a lucid dream. And I'll teach you exactly how to do this, and I'll show you a lot of resources to get started on that I put online at no charge right now. So invoke the vibration, separate from the body. I get out of the body, and I'm like, okay, and I'm like well trained. I know not to dwell upon the body, and I'm teaching you how to do it as we're talking. Don't focus on the body. So I choose a target destination, and I just chose to go see my girlfriend in the house. I fly over to the window where she would be lying in bed, but the room was energetically black. And I was like, oh, I could see on the etheric level how dark that room was. I couldn't see her in there at all. And I don't know what that was. I don't care. I didn't choose to go in there or explore that. It wasn't the point of being out of the body. So I flew over to the other bedroom where the mother and son were, she's a stepmom, but whatever, just working to be accurate. They're sleeping in the same bedroom. Their physical bodies are sleeping in the beds in that room, but their astral bodies, actually you might say more of the etheric body, was astral and etheric bodies were out of the physical. They were floating above their bodies while they were sleeping, which is very common, that you are out of your body at night, but you just don't remember it, and you're not trained to be aware of when you're out. So part of the training is just to expand your awareness enough to know when you're out and to remember the experience. The interesting thing, those of you who've been through my hypnotherapy training, you've heard this story in Transpersonal. So, because we talk about this exact component, it's a very interesting theme. While I'm looking in the window and I see the boy's body in bed and the mother's body in bed, out of that were their etheric astral bodies floating there. The mother was female out of the body, but the boy was female out of the body, which was really fascinating to me. Because like, later reflecting on this and talking to people about it, Like that probably explains when somebody says, well, I feel like I'm just like a woman in a man's body. It's like, oh, because you're so much of your thinking in your astral body looks physical. It looks like in that case, feminine for that being. But the physical body is more masculine. What can I say? I've reflected a lot about that over the years, and I have a lot more insight, but that's not really the topic. So anyway, there's nothing, to see in the house, and I'm still really, really like out of my body in a way that's like there's times where you're just so vividly there, and it's exciting. It's like, wow, like the potential is incredible. And I had very high experiences before that, but I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna play around. Like I'm bored. I don't want to be in that house, so I'm just gonna fly around. I fly away from the house through the neighborhoods. I can see all the houses. Like in my mind, I remember this more, and this is just one of many, many, many experiences. I remember this more vividly than like any human experience. When you're out of your body, things are more real, not less real. Your physical plane, remember, is the illusion. The more subtle levels are real, and they feel better, and they are better. And there's really not much reason to be physical. In fact, there's no reason to be physical. Although we can talk about like, well, why? But really, you don't need to be here. It's a choice to be here. You don't need to be here. You can want to be here. You can have a desire to be here, like I said, but you don't need, your soul doesn't need to have a human experience. It's a choice. And it's a choice to leave your body when you want to, because nobody said you had to be in this thing. And nobody said you had to sustain this thing until it's 80, 90, 100 years old, right? There's a lot of topics here, but I'll go back to the story. So the point is, like, of course we can leave our bodies, and it's so much better out of the body. It really is. And part of why I'm not leaving very actively now, for many reasons, as I explore, because I know how to do it, and I'm starting to do it again for you guys, for the teachings. And I'm not going to want to get back in here. So I kind of like be 100% in or 100% out. But you can't be 100% out when you have a mission here. And eventually, I'm sure we'll start talking about your mission, or the mission why you are here. Is I'm not here for me anymore. I'm here to teach and to serve and to heal, to enlighten. And that's super valuable, right? So that's like the only real reason to be here if you're doing the Bodhisattva thing now. Right, back to that story. So I'm flying through the neighborhoods. I can see it very clearly, again, in my mind and the way it was out of the body. And eventually I fly over to the overpass, things like the Turnpike and Route 50, for those of you who know Orlando, or that area generally. And it's probably not the right exact spot. But anyway, there's an overpass, and there's all the built up of dirt, right, to go over the road. So there's like a ramp on the side of the ramp. I'm flying towards that, and I kind of use that just for fun, to launch up into the sky. So I'm zooming up that thing, flying higher, higher. Yet at some point, and this part I don't remember exactly, but I kind of remember like the flying momentum stopped. And so I said, okay, I'm going to manifest astral arms, and I'm going to start just for fun, because again, I'm just having fun, flap my astral arms. Because what you're doing, while I'm going higher and higher, faster and faster, you're moving into the other dimension. So I'm leaving the physical etheric level behind, and I'm moving up into the astral plane. So flying higher, faster, I decided to start flapping my arms just for like this fun sense of momentum. And then eventually it got fast enough, high enough to bring me up into the astral plane. The astral plane is very hard to describe, but I'll do my best to talk about everything I can with you guys. By the way, before I continue, the out-of-body stuff, well, first of all, it's lesson 12. We're supposed to start level 3 with lesson 11. So technically all the out-of-body teachings are level 12, but there's going to be a lot of intermingling here and not very linear, because it's not linear stuff at all that we're talking about. So that's one point. Moving through is, yeah, level 12 out-of-body, or some other point, but I'll come back to it. Moving through the levels. Okay, well, let's go back to the story. So ascending up, no, there's a point here, it'll come back to me. Ascending up into the astral plane, the physical is dropping away. And so how do you know that it's physical or etheric or astral? Physical is going to be the most solid, most dense. You're very familiar with it. I don't need to explain the physical to you. When you get out of your body, the etheric plane is very much like the physical, but it's very alive. And quite often you're out of your body, you're not actually seeing the physical plane. You're seeing the etheric plane. My hesitation is how much to describe about all that. Now it's really not all that important. So eventually, we most likely can talk more about what the etheric plane is like. But it's like seeing the physical. It's just not physical. It's much more alive. It's where you'd see chakras and meridians. Even though you don't necessarily see those, you'd have to intentionally look for them to see them. But that'd be the level of meridians and chakras. The geometries would be there, but again, you wouldn't see them unless you look for them, or you're intending to travel in a body that would have that kind of form. But your etheric body generally looks a lot like your physical body. It's going to be dressed similar to you. If you could look in a mirror, you would see the same, but you don't see your face, just like you don't see your face now unless you're teaching in a camera, looking in a mirror. Out of your body, you don't see your face, but you are you, and you can have arms and legs and be dressed and you would look like you. But things are just different. They're at a higher vibrational frequency. Quite often what's on the right is on the left, or what's above is below. Or if you saw physical things like your car, it might be like the original blueprint of the car. So my car, and one of my out-of-body experiences was a coupe, like a solid rooftop, but out of my body was a convertible. And the convertible version of that car was made energetically before they actually made the coupe version. So you're quite often seeing the blueprint of the physical when you're on the etheric, but it's intermingled with the physical. It's really fascinating. Your eyelids can close from the bottom up instead of the top down. What you feel should be on the left is on the right. And things just look different, but very similar. So you know you're on the etheric when it's very physical, but not quite physical. I believe it's why when souls leave their body and they're not all that evolved and they don't know where to go, they don't really realize they're dead, because they're in a body that seems a lot like the physical, but it's not the physical, it's the etheric. I may have mentioned to this group the movie Ghost, where Patrick Swayze is shot, he runs after his assailant, can't catch him, and then runs back where Demi Moore is holding his physical body. But he's standing there in his etheric body, and it looks just like the physical. And it's going to feel a lot like the physical. And you don't necessarily know you're dead until you realize, all right, things are not quite what you expect. So this is what I'm talking about, like the real deal. You're lying in your bed at night and you get out of your body. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not a dream. It's really serious. Most people can't do it and don't do it. And even if you start to get into it, once you realize you will be out of your body, and there are other beings who will be there with you quite often. Not always, but eventually there will be. Like is going to attract like. You're going to end up bumping into someone or something, and it could be really scary. So as we get into those teachings, we'll go through, forget what it is in the workbook, but there's a section on dealing with fear, right? So it's a big deal. You're out of your body, moving around in most likely for you uncharted territory. So you have to get over the fear for sure, and that'll be part of the training. All right, so now we can go back to the story. So I'm leaving the physical, leaving the etheric plane, flying higher and faster. Eventually I'm on the astral plane. How do you know? Well, the physical isn't there, and there's no solidness the way the physical is, but there's form. You'll see people, or other beings. You'll know there's other beings. There'll be rooms and cities and buildings and stuff that you're familiar with, and stuff you're not familiar with. But it's almost impossible to talk about or grasp the stuff that's just not, that you don't have vocabulary for. So, I can try to talk about the things that are just wholly unfamiliar. But the things that are familiar, because remember, consciousness manifests mind, simply stated. Mind, the realm of ideas, and mind is not, you could say that's like causal mental. Then as it starts to densify, it becomes astral. So if I just say cities and buildings, right, there's ideas of that, but then those ideas, especially when those ideas are shared, start to manifest and they start appearing astrally. So if you have some idea of, let's say your dream house, right? And you say, all right, idea for my ideal home. And you start visualizing it. And I just saw a picture of a home I really like, so I'm looking at that in my mind now. And I'm picturing, that it's very modern. There's a lot of glass. It's white. Doesn't matter. I'm just talking about it. I have a mental image. And if I keep holding it and saying, yeah, I want that house, and I share that idea with others, that mental idea is going to start to manifest itself on the astral plane. In What Dreams May Come, they show that really well, because the husband-wife, I forget who the actress is for Robin Williams' wife, but in the movie, they had this home actually that they had drawn, they had painted, or she had painted physically. But when he was out of his body, that house was there. Okay, so that's, it's a movie, but that's the closest that you could explain, at least an example I'm giving you now, of what the etheric plane, the astral plane is like. So it's not physical. There's ways to get to it. So we'd have to talk about that. I think I remember what I was going to say before. When I used to do these workshops, I started teaching this stuff when I was 23 years old. Like I started doing public lectures, which for me was terrifying at 23. I started spiritual teaching at that age. And I was doing out-of-body workshops Friday night for 3 hours, all day Saturday, and all day Sunday. It was like 20 hours to teach what I knew at 23 years old about out-of-body travel. So bear with me, as I don't know how long level 3 is going to take, but I could easily do 20 hours of this stuff. All right, so I'm talking about moving to the astral plane, the whole idea of 20 hours. I don't know why that's relevant, although I just want you to know what we're getting into. All right, so let's go to this story now. So we're leaving the etheric physical plane, we're flying higher and faster, and then so first person real story, I am on the astral plane. I'm in some type of, it seemed like a nightclub, but not that. It was a gathering, it was like a party, it was a social thing. People were just gathering, being together. I was up in the rafters in this building or whatever, like up in the ceiling area, and I could look down and see everybody there. And just kind of like, hanging around in the rafters, floating around there for a little bit. I got a sense, like it felt kind of voyeuristic in the sense like I'm watching these people. I don't want to say it was sexual, but I'm like, they don't see me. I wonder what I can check out here. What am I going to see? This is all adults. I wonder what they're going to be doing. That's what I'm looking at. That's what I'm thinking. At that moment, while I'm thinking those kind of thoughts of like, wow, I'm going to spy on these people. I'm going to see what they're up to. And then I do remember like having a thought like, wow, maybe there's something sexual going on. Keep in mind, I'm in my early 20s. Then in the midst of having those thoughts, I look down and somewhere like in the middle of the crowd, if you will, Sai Baba, you can Google him if you don't know who he is. Sai Baba, he passed away, he left his body, I think in the past like 10 years or so. He's a really great saint. Everybody has, most of these people have stories about their reputation that's not always so good, but he's a very, very high being. He's supposedly the reincarnation of Shirdi Sai Baba, if you're going to research who I'm talking about. This is in Shirdi Sai Baba, but it's the same soul. This is Sai Baba, and he really is the same being. He's just more advanced in his next incarnation as Sai Baba, and he looks different. He has a really big afro, so it's unmistakable. And a lot of he's Indian, Indian. He doesn't look really like a lot of the Indian men that you would see. So the big afro is unmistakable, and the ochre, I think that's how you say it, ochre colored robe of a Hindu sannyas, a holy person. So I see him walking out with the ochre colored robe and the big afro. I'm like, oh my God, that's Sai Baba, who I'm very comfortable with and familiar with from other experiences. So there's a connection for sure. But he's not like my guru. But anyway, I fly down right where he is, like, wow, chance to be right in front of a great saint. The order of what was said is hard to describe because communication is not linear. So all of this happened like at the same moment, but you can only describe it as if it happened in stages. What happens when you're out of your body is what Robert Monroe called a rote. A rote is a packet of energy information that one soul gives to another very fast, beyond time and space. It's taking me, however many months to do the Anahat teachings for you, and it's taking hours each class to move you forward. In and out of the body, you can deliver information very fast. It might take a lot of time for the recipient to grasp what was given, but all the information can be given instantly, and it's telepathic in that sense. So there's a communication, and he says, like something like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm just out and about flying." And he said, "Why?" And again, this felt much longer than these few words I'm saying, but eventually the whole point of the story is he said, "Why are you not seeking God?" And it was fierce, it was strong, it was compassionate and loving, but it was so obvious that I am dwelling on an intermediate plane. I know better, I've been higher, and yet I just had 20 whatever year old, fun, playful, even sexual desires. And he's like, "Why are you not seeking God?" At that moment, I fell down onto the floor in front of his feet. I fully bowed, full prostration. And I said something like, again, it's not English, "I humbly bow to the lotus feet of your divinity." Oh, then in the middle of this whole dialogue, he said, he didn't say, "Why are you not seeking God?" He said, "Why are you not seeking me?" But the word "me" and the word "God" occupied the same space. So he's identified, any great saint like that is identified with knowing himself as God. That he knows he's spirit. He knows he's pure consciousness. He's not separate from that in any way. Unlike me, who's flying around feeling like a separate individual at that time. He was much further than that and encouraging me, it's not about out-of-body flying. I know you guys are excited to fly. That's awesome. I want to teach you this stuff for sure. But flying towards God as God is what it's all about. So I said to him, "What do you mean? Seek you or seek God?" And he actually said, "Seek me." It was at that moment I went into full body prostration and said something like, "I bow to the lotus feet of your divinity," I think was kind of the sentiment of what came out. At that moment, I was instantly transported back into the backyard where my body was asleep. And, I had time later to reflect on that. I'll finish the story, but essentially that's the reason for the story, is when you're out of your body, seek the highest. You'll experience these other planes along the way because, like I said, God is within the physical, within the etheric, within the astral. But there's also God beyond the beyond, right? If you remember all the different charts and images, which I don't have available to show us right now. But the idea of ascending all the way back to your source, that has to be the goal. Even though when you're out of your body, you might have some really cool experiences, put both eyes on the highest. And someday, maybe tonight, I can tell you stories about that. But really that's reserved for technically the last lessons of level 3, cosmic consciousness, and then even deeper than that, ascension, complete ascension, complete union back into Godhead. And that can only happen out of a body. You can't do that in a body. I have a reading we're going to get to tonight from Paramahansa Yogananda, where he talks about the importance of being able to leave the body consciously and voluntarily at will. If you can't do that yet, you're not a fully liberated soul. In Sanskrit, that's called Jivana Mukta. And it's a really important part of the journey, because if you're still trapped in any one of your bodies, the physical, the etheric, or the astral, or you could say the mental causal, but really it's kind of like there's 3 sheaths around the around the spirit, 3 sheaths around you as soul, if you will, if you want to use the word soul. You have to be able to drop the physical encasement, the etheric encasement, and the astral encasement. The idea of the mental causal doesn't really get dropped. It reabsorbs back into you is spirit. So we'll get to that when we start talking about the deeper levels of samadhi. You don't go to the highest with your ego intact. You don't go to the highest with a body. You can't take your physical body to God. You can't take your etheric or astral body to God. And you can't take your neurotic mind to God. But like I said, you don't drop your neurotic mind. You transform it as you merge into source. But let me finish that story and then we'll continue. But again, the message of that story is seek the highest. Trust me on that. I hope flying in other dimensions and stories I tell you can get you excited to want to go to those dimensions, which means you have to start putting less attention on the physical, and it'll be harder to function on the physical. I'm not going to lie to you about that at all. I've been getting a lot of disclaimer about that. But yeah, sometimes the really cool out-of-body experiences are what motivate you. But I'm telling you, the highest is what should motivate you. So finishing that story, I'm back in the backyard. I'm out of my body. And while I'm out of my body, the little girl, who was a little boy, was in the backyard. And my girlfriend's astral body was in the backyard as well. It's almost like they were watching over my physical body while I was away. But they are watching over in their etheric bodies, astral etheric bodies. So I talked to them a little bit out of the body. Again, communication is not necessarily English or linear, like one word after another. But basically they said, where were you? And I said I was out of my body flying, and I met with Sai Baba, who's an ascended master. So it's like that's the category of the out-of-body experience. It was like an encounter with an ascended master. So it's like, I was like with Sai Baba. And they said, the little girl said, oh, I've been out of my body too once. I forget what that being said about where, it's hard to say he or she, because it was the astral body, again, was feminine, even though in the physical he was a boy. But he said, like, I was out of my body and visited a friend or something, I forget. And then there's a little bit more dialogue. Eventually I felt the pull of the body. The body itself is like a gravitational force. You'll feel it sucking you back into it. You have to learn about that stage because snap back into the body is very violent, very unpleasant, and would probably kill you, cause bodily death if your body was really frail, or I don't know, we don't know, because when somebody has their final projection, we don't get to hear on this plane what happened to them. So I do give you some warning about don't do out-of-body travel until you really know how to come back safely. All right, so that's our introduction to some teachings. Let's do some screen share. And someone had a question we'll work to get to ideally before the end about visualizing the microcosmic orbit on level 2. Okay. Make this small. All right, we won't be here too long. I just wanted to show you just the home page, nothing changed, but just to start on the home page. Then if you click on, actually let's look on books for a moment. It's a little plug for a dear friend of mine. I have a very good friend who is a poet and author and brilliant with the written word. So I asked her if she'd like to be on this website because her information is worthy of that. And we got her down here now. So she wrote a really good, actually I haven't read it, but I'm sure I haven't read any of her stuff, except I read one of her books of poetry. I just know how good she is and I know her really well. So I can highly recommend these, even though I honestly haven't read them. Taoism for Beginners. So Taoism, one of the major religions of China, and would be great stuff to learn for our practice here. So that's that book. Meditation Now. I'm sure it's super simple stuff, but just a plug for her. I don't think you guys would need that based on what we've done with Anahat. And then these writings must be exquisite because, again, we're so similar. I actually once said to her, I'm like, you're like a brother from another mother. And she's like, well, like sister from another mother. I'm like, okay, but still, like you're like you're like another me. So physics, philosophy, and non-dual spiritual inquiry. So her name is Elizabeth Redinger. And I'm going to definitely recommend her readings, her writings, even though I haven't personally read them. All right, so that's there. And if you have something you think deserves to be on this website, let me know. I can't put everybody's on there, but I'm certainly open to considering anything. All right, so we're going to Anahat meditation now. And what do we have here? Let me, okay, I had to refresh. So lesson 11 is not done yet. Lesson 12 I did post today, but lesson 12 is just out-of-body teachings. And what I have in our out-of-body, let me see, on my other websites, if you go to my products, you'll see an astral projection workbook. It's right now $44.95. I told you guys I'm not here to sell you anything, and that's true. You're always welcome to buy stuff, but that's not the intention of taking through this training, obviously. So today, meditating on what's the best way to deliver the teachings, instead of rewriting a whole training manual, I just gave you guys at no charge, at least for right now, the Astral Projection Out-of-Body Experience Workbook. It's not in our Hypnotherapy Schools training. I think only one of the 11 meditations are in the Hypnotherapy Schools training. So I'll show you what that's all about, and we'll probably start looking at it today. So lesson 12 is out-of-body travel, astral projection. And yeah, there's a whole workbook and a whole set of recordings. The recordings, so we have all of our lessons here. Do level 1, level 2, I made space for level 3's videos to start posting. And now down here in the audio recordings, I took the audio from last class, lesson 10, at the end of the class when I took you through the entire meditation system of level 1 and level 2. I took just the audio of that today and uploaded it here. So this is the audio that will guide you through all of level 1 and all of level 2. It takes about 45 minutes the way I walk this through it. And I feel good about it. I could always redo it with different versions, but more clean perhaps without other words. But generally that's a really solid version that you can go through, taking it through levels 1 and level 2. I don't have a workbook at this current moment for lesson 10, where I explain the latter part of level 2. But you really don't need it. I'll just see what I can do over time. Okay, so lesson 10, meditation for level 1 and 2 is there. And I need to write meditation next to that, just like, so you know how we have like lesson 8, disc 2, lesson 9, disc 2. This lesson 10, level 1 and 2 would be a disc 2, even though it didn't come from a disc, it came from last week's class. Beyond that, I put all of the recordings at no charge right now for the out-of-body experience stuff, so you can start doing it now if you want, and I'll explain, and then we'll look at the workbook soon. AP1, Astral Projection 1, Daily Hypnotic Programming. So you can listen to that recording during the day. It's going to start to prepare you for out-of-body experiences. You won't necessarily have them while you're listening to that hypnotic recording, but it will prepare you for the experience in a lot of different ways. So if you really want to get into that, listen to that recording every day or whenever you do during the day. Then AP2, nighttime sleep programming. You fall asleep to that at night. It just ends saying go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep. As it fades off into sleep, you might, I'm not saying you will that night, but you got to keep doing it. It takes a lot of training, and I'll explain more of how you start to make that occur. And I can't guarantee it will occur for you for various reasons, but you could always consult with me if you're trying and it's not happening and you think it should be happening. It's more complicated and more advanced than you may realize. And again, I have a reading that'll help maybe put that into context for us. Okay, so it'll take some time. So you can for months, literally just months. Don't do it for a week or one time and say, I tried it didn't work. Months and months and months of practice, maybe even years, because the goal is God. So you don't give up because the goal is God. You can't give up on that goal. Astral Projection 1 and 2, then 3, subliminal programming. If you play that music in the background, embedded in the music are suggestions to cause out-of-body experiences. So don't play it when somebody else is in the room, because that can mess with them and they should have, an understanding of what they're getting into. So that's only for you to play for yourself. You can play it while you're sleeping at night, and the suggestion should help. Or just play it, I don't want to say when you're driving a car, because if you do, I've heard of people leave their bodies while they're driving a car, and that's not a great place to be, right? So probably don't use it in a car, but Any other time, just taking a nap or mowing the lawn, you can be exercising, you can put that on. It'll help. Meditations or recordings 4 and 5, you really don't need those because you're an Anahat meditator now. But meditation 1 is, oh, I don't want to click on that. This first one, descending, is meditation 1. For people who are not initiated into the Anahat meditation system, just breathe below your navel, breathe below your navel. Why? Because you've been leaving your body and you need to know how to get back in. But you guys already know about level 1 and meditation 1. You want to be, when you want to really stay in your body, you do just descending. But just descending isn't enough, so you do level 1. Level 1 will keep you grounded, balanced in your body, but it'll keep you very close, because once you finish level meditation 12 structure, the spine, the skeletal system, then everything relaxes. You start kind of moving out into level 2, into the more subtle grids. So level 1 keeps you very much in your body and very functional, and you're going to feel great. Level 2, you start feeling a bit awkward because you're not really in the physical. But you guys have a lot more training than somebody who's just doing this workbook set. So astral projection 4, guided meditation for descending. You could use that, but you already know if you go up here, lesson 1, disc 2 would be descending, right? That's what this one is, AP4. AP5, ascending. When you're leaving your body, when you really want to leave, when you're determined to leave, when you have the free time and know, you can just go, or as much as you possibly can. And let me give an example before I explain that, what I mean. When I went to live in the Zen monastery when I was about 23, not 22, I guess, whatever. I was working at a bicycle shop, and I was like, it's a long story, but like, what am I doing? I'm a monk, so I made plans to eventually be in the monastery in May, and I had all of February, January, February, March. I had March and April with nothing to do until I was scheduled to be there. So I quit my job. I went to my parents' house in South Florida. I locked myself in my bedroom that I grew up in. And really, I didn't leave that room for 2 months. I didn't have to work, so during the whole day, I spent the entire day in meditation. They would come home, I'd have dinner with them, and then I'd go back and meditate again. That's all I did. I had no job, no significant other, no expenses, nothing. And yeah, the veils drop away, and you're in the spiritual realms all the time. You have to be in a stage of your life to do that. So that's one example. In college, my first Zen teacher, he had me watch his house where the Zen meditation room was. And I spent 9 days fasting and meditating, totally alone, nothing to do, like nothing at all. Just look after the house. And he's the one who taught me how to do long-term retreats, and to do them alone, and to do them without food, to do them with no distraction, and just a schedule to meditate all day. I didn't have out-of-body experiences then because I was doing Zen and descending, but I had some really cool, awakenings for sure. So my point is, this kind of stuff is monastic level. It's intense retreat level. It's not just something you do for 10 or 20 minutes or even 45 minutes a day. Again, this is onlinemonastery.com, monastic levels of meditation, which again are like 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day of spiritual practice. Okay, so don't be disheartened if you're not able to get out of your body right away. It's not like, well, I can't do a visual imagery thing. I can't do a guided meditation. We're talking like not being in your physical body. It's not a dream. It's a big deal. You as spirit are the life force that animates this body. Have you ever been there? You don't have to answer, but have you ever been there when somebody is at the moment of death? I got to experience that in the past, like 2 years, within the past 2 years. I won't say who or what, but I was right there. We were holding this person's hand, as he left his body in hospice. And it was a beautiful experience, of course. But the moment the spirit's no longer in the body, if you've ever been there, it's like, So your body needs you, and to not really be in it all the time is not great for the body. And that's why we have Anahat meditation to keep us in the body. But when we want to leave, we also have the ability to do so. When I've left my body and looked back and saw my body in the bed, which I don't always do, I usually don't do, and sometimes you look and you don't see the body in the bed, which is a whole nother discussion. But when you look back and see the body in the bed, it looks like a corpse. It's really freaky. And again, you don't want to look at it too long because you just end up back in it. But it's a big deal. If you're out of your body for 7 days total, according to the yogis, the ancient yogis, the body will die. You won't be able to get back into it because it's going to drop away. Right? It needs you. And if you're half in it most of the time, it's going to have issues, temperature issues, digestive issues, maybe different sorts of aches and pains. Kundalini will be all weird, and honestly, no doctor will be able to tell you why. So you need to know how to get back in. With that said, meditation, so that's why we have AP4, descending. That's why we have level 1, that's why we have meditation 1, descending, and all of level 1 will keep you in your body. But AP5, ascending, and you'll notice, you can't really see them, but all of the symbols here for all these meditations, except for here, if I click on descending, does it open? It doesn't open. Don't do anything. So anyway, AP4, I put this symbol for descending. Oh, there it is. No, stop talking.
Sitting.
I gotta get that guy to stop talking 1 sec. Okay, so while it's reloading, AP4 descending is symbol is descending. All the other ones, the symbol is ascending. Okay, so here we are. All right, so yeah, symbols for all these just have an ascending triangle and the sphere at the top, but not so important. For meditation 5, if you do just ascending, that's what you do when you want to leave your body. Meaning you only meditate on, I mean, I have other techniques for you for sure, but the primary thing you do, this is like probably the biggest secret, meditate on your third eye, and that's all you do. When you're doing mantra, you're there. If you're counting your breaths, you're there. Whatever you do, you're there. You stop forgetting about your hara, stop forgetting about your heart, you're dropping all the lower chakras, you're just focusing there. Like when you close your eyes, go there. You're not thinking about your body at all. The great Saint Ramakrishna, he was a devotee of the Divine Mother Kali, and he would sit in the Kali temple meditating and loving Kali, and there's a whole beautiful, huge story there. The point is, he had really, really high experiences, but then he met a man named Totapuri, who was a non-dualistic Advaita Vedanta practitioner. So basically what he said to Ramakrishna, you need to go beyond the image of Kali. You need to go to the highest. And then Ramakrishna goes and prays to Kali, and she's like, yeah, you have permission, go ahead. So he spends, I think it only took him like 3 days to attain the highest state of the Vedanta teachings. Total non-dual oneness with Brahm, total union with God. And he's trying, for 3 days, but he's trying it first, and he can't do it because he can't get rid of the image of Kali. He's able to go into samadhi, but with the visual image of her, which is Vachar Samadhi. Totapuri is saying, no, you have to go beyond that. There's higher stages of samadhi, and he was totally right. So Ramakrishna, does it, he keeps focusing, but what Totapuri does is, I think he took, there's different stories of different traditions, but he takes his finger, pushes it really hard into his forehead, and says, meditate there, like causing pain. And then he's like, that's the spot. And all Ramakrishna did for 3 days straight, without moving, locked in meditation pose, staring at his third eye, and focusing on the highest. All right, so not focusing on any intermediate stage of spiritual growth, no flying around astral planes, which he had done before. This was focusing on the highest. That's what I'm encouraging you to do. And if you're going to start doing it, you have to put tons of attention there. So like I said, I kind of like level 1 better, because I'm still doing the human experience. I have a lot to teach, I have a mission to fulfill, and I have to be here. But I'm doing a lot of level 3 for you guys. It's not really the time in my life, although with COVID, I have the luxury to do it now. I'm, home alone doing just meditating all day lately. So it's wonderful, but it's really hard to be in the physical body and start to just feel like the body feels really odd, really strange. I can't even describe it. I thought of how would I describe my body feels? Really strange. Not good, not bad, just different and weird. And it's like, all right, down here kind of sucks. Out there is awesome. Okay, so that's one major tip. If you're going to start moving into level 3, you pretty much are going to focus on your third eye, but you can move through level 1 into level 2 into level 3. But when you're 100% level 3, there's all the techniques I'm going to share with you, including specific anahata teachings. But the main thing is you just start disconnecting the grid, which we'll talk about, from the human, and you just start, attention is only on the highest. And it shouldn't only be like 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day if you're serious, hours and hours a day. Like your evenings are spent only ascending. You're probably not going to sleep as well. If you do one of the techniques I'll teach you, you're going to wake up at 3 in the morning to practice that technique. I barely slept last night because I knew we were going to be doing this today. I think I slept from like 5 to 6 o'clock this morning. That was it. The whole rest of the night was in meditation. It's beautiful because the body won't need as much sleep, especially as we get into the advanced sexual energy teachings. But again, I'm telling you, this is monastic level stuff, not just mindfulness meditation. Okay, moving on. There are 5 major steps to an out-of-body experience. Number 1, body asleep, mind awake, and that's here in AP6, deep relaxation. That'll help to prepare you for body asleep, mind awake. And you can practice just that one by itself. And the workbook, we'll talk about it as we go through the workbook together over what'll probably be, a period of weeks. Invoking the vibrations. The hardest thing to do, the hardest thing to teach. I can't even do it myself all the time when I want to. I can only just keep trying, keep trying, keep trying. Eventually it happens. I said earlier, and I didn't allude to as much as I could, let me make the image of the camera bigger. That makes it better. In Course in Miracles, I said, you do all the work to get there. You work out your own salvation, and then God himself takes the final step. That moment, as that's occurring, is so incredibly beautiful. It's a total surrender. It's a total letting go. And as you're doing that, then spirit guides, non-physical beings, ascended masters, angels, I'm not making shit up here, all this is real, they start taking over. So you just start surrendering. And again, the more you do and the more you put your attention on the highest, God takes away your other responsibilities. But you might feel a dark night of the sense kicking in where stuff is being taken away that you thought was really valuable. That can be really rough. It can be challenging. So again, as many disclaimers as I can give you, but also teachings about how to do it as we move along. It's like, all right, here's why you might not want to do this. And then here's how to do it. It's one way to do it. So invoking the vibrations, that meditation will help. I'll talk to you more about it when we get to it. Breaking coincidence meditation. There's a separation stage that you want to be conscious of, because when the vibrations are there, and you're like, oh, wow, I know it. I know what's happening. And you intuitively know, and you now intellectually know, because I'm explaining all this to you. That'll happen. You get really excited, and you'll snap back in because you got too excited. Or you won't know how to control the vibrations to be able to leave your body, because when you leave the body, the vibrations stay behind. It's like you float out of them. And it's a whole level of practice, and you won't get it right away. You might, but there'll be times where you're trying to get out, you're in the midst, and then you get sucked back in for various reasons. So you can practice that. There's a whole meditation for it. Meditation 9, extending meditation, we'll cover in different ways, but essentially it's all about transferring your consciousness to your etheric or astral body. And eventually we'll talk about soul travel, where you don't actually have to be in your physical body at all. I mean, not your physical, but not your etheric and not your astral. You don't have to be in any body at all. The only thing you have with you is your mind. And you can call that your mental body, but it's really not a good way to say it. When you're doing soul travel, it's just you as soul, and yes, your mind is with you, and what you do with your mind is extremely important. So extending meditation is going to relate to event. Well, these aren't quite the stages. these are just meditations, but they do a lot of what I'm talking about. Breaking coincidence meditation, extending meditation, separation meditation. All of that is designed to loosen you up so you can be out of coincidence with your physical body. And what that really means is, like when, I don't have an image to show you, but when you see the picture of the physical body and the etheric body or the astral body floating above, when you're out of coincidence, you're just kind of out, but then there's like really out. But if you do this kind of stuff, you're gonna spend a lot of time kind of out. It's kind of where I've been lately, as I've been getting back into it. When I was in my early 20s, I used to always say, I can astral project anytime I want to, but sometimes it'll take me up to 2 weeks to attune to get out of my body. And there's a whole lot of stuff you have to do during the time to allow that to occur. Now, it'll probably take me more than 2 weeks to start having the experiences again, but constantly and voluntarily. I'm not even sure what's going to happen for me personally. It's a whole new stage, and I really wasn't that interested in projecting. But again, I'm here to teach. I want you to do it, so I'm practicing it on myself. But as I'm starting to move into that, let's go back to these teachings for a moment. Yeah, so I'm doing the breaking coincidence, extending, and separation meditations, and the deeper on the hot stuff I'll teach you. And yeah, you're just really not in your body, and it's awkward. So you want to come back in, but I do have the luxury right now, at least during this Labor Day weekend, to be like, wow, 4 days, virtually nothing to do. So I'm 50% of my body, and I feel it, and it's odd. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, we'll continue. Meditation 11, AP 11, let me not say meditation, AP 11, astral projection meditations. The meditations here, not out of body, not the Anahat meditations. Those numbers, just AP 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, make up for astral projection meditation 6 through 10. So if you play meditation 11, that essentially is going to start out of body experiences. Now, in our hypnotherapy school, one of the last exercises that I introduce students to, but they're nowhere near, at least for what the hypnotherapy school gives, they're nowhere near qualified to be able to have this experience. But the final meditation in the school, which we'll do with you guys, yet, well, there's hypnotic components missing. But what I do with the school is you go into very deep hypnosis, and that's going to be the practice of body asleep, mind awake. Well, you actually do have those meditations here. When you practice AP6, deep relaxation, you're going into hypnosis essentially, but don't worry about that if you don't know what hypnosis is. Just consider it deep meditation. But with this level of hypnosis, you are putting your body essentially to sleep. You're paralyzing it temporarily. You're making it immobile so that you can leave it. It has to be basically asleep and paralyzed to leave it. And don't freak out when you're like, oh my God, I can't move my body. That's a good thing. Just focus on the next stage of moving out. Right? So be prepared. If you ever notice you can't move your body, good. Don't worry about it. You're not a body. You're not bound to a body. The body has to be asleep and essentially immobile for you to leave it. So that's AP6, deep relaxation. That'll help to prepare you to make that happen. So that's basically using hypnosis. So what we do in the hypnotherapy school is we do deep hypnosis called somnambulism. Then I teach them somewhat about samadhi, but that takes a lot more training. So we do somnambulism, samadhi, and then out-of-body experience. That meditation, which takes about an hour, is designed that when you get out of your body, you fly to the highest. So the hypnotherapy school, I was telling one of my staff the other day, I said, you know, honestly what it is, it's a sales funnel to God, where people are like, we just get them in the school, we give them a great career, we give them all this great stuff, all these great teachings and healing abilities. But really the deepest thing is why I'm on earth, is help people to know who they are as spirit, to know God, self-realization, God realization. Okay, so you can definitely utilize basic hypnotic teaching, samadhi teachings, and out-of-body teachings. And level 3 is really all about that, with touching upon advanced sexual energy practices. But to me, they're nowhere near as important as what we're talking about now. Okay, because again, the goal is God, not multiple full body orgasms with this system, which is really cool, and it relates to some of the out-of-body experiences for sure. It's highly connected to this, but at the same time, the goal is always God in the highest. Okay, so you got all those tools there. Again, I used to charge for this. I took away the 16-minute astral projection meditation that was here because it's too simplistic compared to what we're getting into. So now just utilize those 11 meditations. And then I left the financial prosperity one just to be nice. All right, it's not really part of Anahat itself. All right, let's go to screen share for training manuals. All right, this is just real quick to show you. We have level 1. We know about, very much body centered, even though it has descending, which is the main way to get back in your body. We have the whole system, which will keep you in your body and balanced in your body. I constantly, during this past week or two, I'm practicing level 3 for your sake, but I'm finding I keep wanting to do level 1 because it just feels so much better to be integrated in my body rather than half in, half out of my body. So when I'm kind of leaving and I feel it, I'm like, oh yeah, we're not really in right now. There's like a habit to start doing level 1 again because it feels really good to be really integrated with your body. But when you start doing level 2, you start moving out of the physical, putting the attention on the etheric template and on the subtle energy grids. Somebody asked, let me answer the question quickly now. It's hard to visualize on level 2 sexual energy energetics, but specifically the person asked about circulation energetics, or in 19, the starry burst. The question is, when you're breathing up the microcosmic orbit on level 2, what should you be focusing on? You can focus on the line of the tetrahedron that runs the descending tetrahedron that you can feel running up the back, or you could just visualize the microcosmic orbit. It's just a line of force. It's like, half of an oval shape going from tailbone up to crown, because you don't have to focus on, like when we do microcosmic orbit, we're not focused on the physical anyway. Level 2 is all about focusing on the astral etheric. So just focus on that line of force going up the back. And there's a straight line because you have a tetrahedron there, one of the lines of the tetrahedron, but you also have the curved line, so masculine straight line, curved line feminine of the microcosmic orbit. Hopefully that answered that person's question. Ask me more later if you want more clarity. All right, so level 2 is all about transitioning to those more subtle levels. And it has other value. There's a lot of other value. There's a lot of reasons to do it beyond what I've been saying so far. So you do it, you get benefit, you don't even have to know why. And again, it's like an intermediate stage into level 3. Level 3, we need to continue talking about stages of samadhi. We talked about the first level, Vitark, because Vitark relates to level 1, more physical. Then we talked about Vichar, more of the subtle, the energetic, level of etheric and astral, or even the realm of mental ideas. So Vichar, the second level of samadhi, and I'll show you charts and everything later. Vichar Samadhi level 2 is focusing on mental ideas. As we go beyond that, we'll start talking about Anand Samadhi, meditating on pure bliss, Asmita Samadhi, meditating on pure consciousness, and really it's Asmita Samadhi, meditating on pure consciousness. That's really what it's all about. I see somebody typed, I'll come back to the chat pod, and let me see if I can see it real quick. Great. She said, thank you, that helps. I was trying to visualize a straight line, but I feel it curves. Yeah, so it's both, because remember, there's always masculine and feminine lines. There's straight lines and curved lines. We have the line of the tetrahedron, and we have the curved line of the microcosmic orbit. They're both part of your energetic anatomy, and energy can go up both of those grids. Awesome, thank you. Okay, so stages of samadhi. We have more to cover with that. And beyond Asmita Samadhi, which is a lot of what you'll focus on with out-of-body travel, you need to know the stages beyond that, which relate to nirvikalp and other words. But I'll give them to you now, planting the seeds. Nirvikalp Samadhi, Asampragyat Samadhi, Kaivalya Avastha, and what was, well, there was something I was experiencing the other night, and there's another word for it, but we'll hold off. The point is, you can go to much deeper levels than even what we talked about so far, and that's what level 3 is all about, and it's going to take as long as it takes to teach all this stuff. So stages of samadhi, we have more to cover, and that'll be lesson 11. Astral projection, I'm going to probably start touching upon tonight. That's lesson 12. Advanced sexual energy practices, I don't know if we need a 2 or 3 hour class, but we'll see how that goes. And then cosmic consciousness ascension, that's worthy of a good 2-3 hour class. All right, I just wanted to show you that. Now let's go to the astral projection workbook itself, and I'll just give you somewhat of an overview. And then I don't know if we do any formal meditation together tonight, but I've been doing a lot of the out-of-body meditations on my own, and I was thinking I can just shift gears, lie down, and more encourage you. If I lie down, I won't be able to talk. So I'm thinking I can sit up and take you through some of this. But in case we don't get to that tonight, the recordings will guide you through everything I would do anyway. And I think they're going to be really good. Honestly, I obviously haven't listened to them since I made them, but I like the stuff that I produced. That was, I think, made in 2012. So anyway, let's start moving through and see how far we get. So we're jumping beyond samadhi for a moment, just starting to initiate you into the out-of-body teachings, which is again lesson 12 technically, not lesson 11, which are deeper samadhi teachings. Astral projection, the out-of-body experience, the official Silent Light Publishers, that's my publishing company, workbook, and the 11 audio recordings with me. Again, this is not part of the Hypnotherapy School's training, at least not all the, maybe the workbook, but not all of these audio recordings that are made available for you now. Okay, so Silent Light Publishers, copyright 2012. Same disclaimer, don't teach this to other people. You might say, oh, I could just give these meditations to other people. I'm giving you so many disclaimers, preparing you so slowly for major Kundalini awakenings, like one of you said on the chat pod, light, blinding white light, electricity. You don't want to start making that stuff happen for people who are just like, I just want to do some guided imagery. Out-of-body travel is not guided imagery. Kundalini is not visualization. It's intense stuff. So don't teach this to others until you're really ready to understand what you're initiating somebody into. These are initiations. And while it's on YouTube, it's only that way right now. And I'm not promoting this right now as I teach it to you guys. I don't know exactly how, who graduates and becomes certified teachers will decide how we disseminate this over time. But right now, there's very few people except for the ones especially going through it. It shouldn't just be public for anybody to just do this stuff. Like I'm saying, it can be really intense. Okay, so don't teach it till you're ready. All right, so introduction, and we're not going to read everything, but I'm going to give you the overview. Introduction to the workbook and audio recordings. A little typo there. Overcoming fears, I said we talk about. Understanding the terrain, meaning the different levels of creation or different levels of the order of manifestation, the different planes of reality, and the vehicles, meaning if you have an astral plane and an astral body. You have a physical plane and a physical body. All right, so visualize the physical plane right now, all of the physical universe and this earth, and here's your body on it. Your body is the microcosm. The physical plane is the macrocosm. We have all these other levels we'll be talking about and guiding you into. Then we have the chakras, the bodies, and the levels in charts I'll explain. Stages of an out-of-body experience. I'd like to see what you can do about covering that today to prepare you for what you're getting into. Other types of out-of-body travel, other types of projections. The vibrational projection I'm talking about has variations. And then there are other types that have nothing to do with the vibrations. And sometimes these other ones are a lot easier to attain. But you want to start working to attain the vibrational projection because it requires a very, very, very pure system. not just physically pure, which is important, but energetically and emotionally pure. When you study the lives of the great saints, there's two things that really tend to qualify for great saint. Like when they're, well, that's not true. I can't say it that way. Measuring sainthood is a complicated process. You know, it's been well outlined. So let me say this very accurately. There are two really good qualities of a saint, not the only two. Number one is purity. Purity of heart, just pure love. There's just nothing there but love. Their compassion, forgiveness is instant for them. They're pure. And the other one is that they're well versed in spiritual literature. They've studied the philosophies and the esoteric texts. They can speak about metaphysics, because without being able to explain the map of the terrain, then you're not necessarily a very effective teacher. So you have great saints who are blissed out and they're very, very pure, but they're not called to be teachers. Those who are called to be teachers, who are just dry philosophers without the experience, don't really have a lot to offer. So to find a teacher, I'm not claiming anything, I ain't all that pure, but to find a teacher who's really purified their energy body so the vibrations can really be there, and who can explain what's happening, that's kind of rare, because you can find the philosophers who haven't gone very far, or you can find the saints who have gone far who can't necessarily teach or duplicate their experience for others. This is a chance to really duplicate really, really profound experiences. Okay, and again, I still have something I'm going to read to you. How to use the audio recordings. So you can read that on your own here. Increasing the probability of projecting. Like I said, as I am attuning now to leaving my body again, and again, we'll see what happens with that. I'm not attached to the outcome at all. Again, I'm just doing it for your sake. Because again, you get to a stage in your growth where you won't actually want to or even need to leave your body. And we could talk about that someday, because you think, wow, what could be higher? All the stuff we're talking about is so good. And eventually, you won't really care to be out of your body. But I don't want that to be an excuse of why you wouldn't want to do it. If you haven't been having these kind of experiences, mystical experiences, really high level mystical experiences, you should work for it. You really should. If you over all these weeks that we'll spend together in level 3, yeah, just want this kind of stuff in your life, even though eventually it's going to settle down. And once I talk about when all the craziness and mystical experience settles down, then you'll see where you're at with that, as far as stages of spiritual growth. So as far as increasing probability of projecting, my bed in this house normally faces head north. That's the best way to have your body positioned. Recently, for no real reason that had to do with anything spiritually, I moved the bed with my head facing west. As I've been doing these practices again at night, especially at night, but day and night lately, I realized, oh, the bed is facing west now. So the moment I really want to shift, to turn on for an out-of-body experience, I'll probably move well, I will. I almost have to. Because what you're doing is you're increasing the probability of a projection. You can still get out when your head is facing west, but if you want to do everything possible to make the experience happen, you'll follow every tip that I'm going to give you. And again, this is not stuff for somebody who lives in the world and has to do a 40-plus hour per week job and has kids and has to drive a car, being really safe. Like right now, it's COVID times. Everywhere you go, you're thinking about, what did I touch? And you got to be pretty grounded on your game right now during a global pandemic. And when you're out of your body a lot, you're not going to feel all that physically grounded. And so, as you're increasing the probability of projecting, you really need to consider your environment, what in neurolinguistic programming we call an ecology check. Like, tell me about every aspect of your life, and let's see, is a really good time to be leaving your body. But anyway, if you do the increasing the probability of projecting section, you're gonna do everything possible to start to get out. You don't have to do everything, but the more you do, the better. As far as getting out goes. Plan for projection, that's a 3 in the morning type of thing. It's not fun to do on a regular basis, but again, you want to increase the probability of projecting, and that's the best way I found to do it. In my early 20s, and I wasn't on camera all the time, I didn't mind looking exhausted, and I can remember that time in my life. I was not sleeping, and I was leaving my body almost every night. But it takes a toll on you. So again, plan for projection, 3 in the morning stuff, not always good for your sleep cycles. And then there's resources. Don't worry about contact information. This was written in 2012 and I didn't change it today. All right, so you got the 5 audio recordings, and then the other for out-of-body specific travel itself, 6 to 10. And then number 11 is all those meditations put together, number 6 through 10. All right, let's just skim through. So you can read the whole intro on your own, but please do if you haven't already. Again, some of you might have this already. Then we talk about the different types of projection: involuntary as opposed to voluntary, and unconscious. So let's talk about all those. I'm going to explain them to you in my words. Let's see if I can get the camera. Look at best position. All right, voluntary or involuntary projections. A near-death experience would be that. You didn't intend to do it, but your body was pretty much dead and you had to go. So near-death experiences in that category. You could also have these experiences without intending to do so. But basically it's simply explained as that. And I'm sure I can give you other examples. I just haven't thought about this too much. Yeah, I mean, near death, you get hit by a Mack truck, you fly out of your body. You didn't mean to do it, but it happened. One of the better known astral projectors, Sylvain, S-Y-L-V-A-N, Sylvain Muldoon. He wrote the book, The Projection of the Astral Body. He was very sickly. His body was almost emaciated, as I understand it, and the spirit really couldn't stay in the body well. In Chinese medicine, the blood houses the Shen, the aspect of the spirit called Shen, but basically the blood houses the spirit. When the blood is deficient, then you don't feel grounded. Now, what does blood deficiency mean? That's not the topic tonight. But if somebody was kind of sickly, they'd probably be qi and blood deficient. So you can be deficient in one or both, either or. If you're deficient in blood, then the spirit won't feel like it can ground well in the body because the spirit's supposed to be able to sit in that yin type fluid. But when it's emaciated, then you're going to be leaving easier. But that's not a good way to leave because you have to make yourself sickly. However, in ways of increasing the probability of a projection, then you start doing things that move you, I don't want to say in the direction of sick, but we've talked about raw food vegan diets. I can't live on a raw food vegan diet, but if I really want to leave my body, and I'm not sure how far I can push that right now, in my early 20s when I was leaving my body all the time, I was raw food vegan. And I was hungry all the time, and I'm really hungry right now because I'm eating light intentionally for you guys. But I don't want to. So you really have to consider your diet with this for sure. You can forget about the diet, but I can tell you you're going to increase the probability if you start to eat more raw food and vegetarian. You don't have to be somebody, one of my student clients said to me recently, she doesn't want to be vegetarian because she can't eliminate all animal products. And I said, no, that's vegan. Vegetarian can be lacto-ovo or even pescatarian, where you might have some fish or you can have eggs if you need to. But I've eliminated all eggs during the hot times. But honestly, I'm kind of feeling like I need to go back to it for like energy and strength level. So you can't really sustain, at least I can't, raw food vegan all the time. So consider, eggs is a way that's, meat is very grounding, blood building, especially red meat, which I won't eat, but blood building, certainly red meat. Beets are another good way to build blood, but nothing like red meat. And then, eggs, and then of course cheese and milk. But the more of the animal products you eliminate, the thinner, you're gonna probably lose weight that way. As long as you can be vegan and eat crap, but if you're getting really, really good vegan and raw food, you're probably going to lose weight and you're most likely going to be slipping out of your body easier. And the live foods really help as well. Okay, so anyway, involuntary projections largely, unintentional, but if you're really sickly, you might find you're slipping out, like people when they're close to death. There's a video we have in the hypnotherapy school. There's an interview of a very religious woman. She's holding her rosary and her Bible, but she talks about one day towards the end of her, very end of her life, she couldn't, like a nurse couldn't find her Bible or her rosary, and she said, "Oh, no problem. I'm like, I'm paraphrasing. She said something like, now that I have the real thing, I don't need those." Right? So those are tools for the direct connection of spirit. As her body was old and sick and withering away, those veils were opening. So what I'm talking about doing is opening the veils to the other worlds while you're still young and healthy. If you're older and not so healthy, and honestly, it might be easier, but you'll have to assess where you are in your stage of life and health. Okay, so involuntary could happen if you end up getting sickly, but that's not the way to do it. Anahata is about self-actualization, success on all levels. Okay, so we have level 1 to get us back in our bodies to be very successful as human beings. Yeah, when you're really determined for this higher stuff, yeah, especially out of body, yeah, you're not going to be filling your body all that much. All right, unconscious projection. That could be actually voluntary. You could be trying all these techniques. You could be visualizing, getting out of your body, doing everything I teach you. You might actually have the experience, but you don't know it. You don't realize it happened to you. You weren't conscious enough to remember, or you were in just such a sleep state that when you come back to the body, there's no memory of what happened. So how would you know that happened? I'll tell you a story on this. And again, some of these stories you may have heard in the hypnotherapy school and transpersonal training. Doesn't matter what time of my life, it just helps me to remember all the details. But anyway, I remember where I lived. I had a friend who, we were living in an ashram together. And so, a lot of people, but this one specific person, he was sick. And I was like, I'm going to leave my body, fly over to his house, and send tons of healing energy. I'm just going to surround him with white light, and I'm just, do it for fun and practice, because this is what I do. And I was teaching workshops at the time as well on out-of-body travel. So I go through the techniques of visualizing, going to his house and doing exactly that. The visualizations aren't the experience, but that's one of the ways to help make the experience happen. So I'm going through the whole technique that I haven't explained yet. One other technique I can talk to you about. But after 2 weeks, I give up. I'm like, I always can do it in 2 weeks. It didn't happen. Sorry, whatever. It wasn't meant to happen. Then after 2 weeks, it was like 2 days after, we're both meditating in this ashram, and everybody, we were there. And then at the end of the meditation, he comes up to me. He goes, "My God, who are you?" And I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" Just Matthew. What? He goes, "You were in my house last night, sending tons of," I'm paraphrasing, right, but sending tons of light and energy. He's like, "I don't know who you are and what you were doing, but I've never experienced anything like that. You were in my house." Now, I don't have any memory of that. I humbly have to say, I wasn't conscious enough to remember having the experience. So a lot of your out-of-body experiences are happening unconsciously, but they could be happening voluntarily because you're trying to do it, but you don't necessarily remember. So we have techniques for that for sure. That astral projection workbook and all those audios. What I'm explaining to you in one of those, I think one of those meditation, the meditation is going to program you. You remember anytime you're out of your body, because you might be leaving at night, just floating out. You do leave your body at night. Do you know when you're half awake, half asleep, and you feel like you're floating a little, and then all of a sudden you snap back awake? What happens there is your subtle bodies, etheric and astral, are recharging on cosmic currents. And then when you catch yourself, you're like, "Oh God," you get a little bit scared, you snap back in. It's a very mini snapback, and you may have felt it, and you might have had it if you're having like a falling or a flying dream or a falling dream and you get scared, you jerk back into your body. You can program yourself to remember the times that you normally don't remember when you actually are out, but usually you're only out like floating above the bed, no big deal. But there are places you go, like real places with real beings and real teachings and experiences, and you just don't remember. I've definitely been out of my body, talked to a lot of people, tried to get them to remember. It's worked. I've been successful. I've proven to myself, not scientifically, but I've proven to myself I do this. I've been out of my body. I've talked to others. I've gathered information in places that I've never been and then prove that I was there. But when you're really doing that, it's not like just the leaving a little or being somewhere unconscious. You're very consciously, voluntarily going. Okay, so anyway, we're working towards conscious voluntary projection. So that's the next one, voluntary projection. Direct projections. I'm going to read briefly, not that I don't know what this is. Yeah, that's okay. No, I got it. I just need to be sure I'm using the same term then as I would now. Direct simply means you're lying in bed, the body is basically paralyzed, it's asleep, but you're awake. It's called body asleep, mind awake. And I'll talk to you more and more how to increase the probability of that happening. Once it does, and the vibrations are present, then a direct projection is just to float right out. Now, you don't necessarily go straight out. You might roll out to the side or somersault backwards. There's different ways that I teach of how to separate, and we can get to that when we get to that. But the point is, direct is just right out. But that is it's what I'm going to mostly teach you to do, but it's one of the harder ways to get out because you have to get body asleep, mind awake. You have to invoke the vibrations, and you have to be able to get through the separation stage, and then even the initial travel stage, you start getting out, and then your body sucks you back in. Well, we're going to work towards direct projection. Again, I encourage you to read the whole manual here. Indirect projections. Yeah, what did I mean by that? These occur where there's no sense of leaving the body at all, but where the consciousness simply finds itself, in another location away from the physical body. Okay, so what happens there, which what I was just calling indirect, is the vibrations might be there or not, but I will find myself out of my body in another location. And what that means, for instance, is the vibrations are there, I'm deciding to leave the body, I think of my target destination, and I'm instantly there. There is no sense of separation or travel. It's like I just think of the person I'm going to go visit, like I visited my dad a few times, and I'd just be like lying in my, where was I? Oh, this was during the time before the monastery, living in his house, or my parents' house. They're still together. So my dad often would be in the living room. So anyway, I left my body and went into the living room. But when I did that a few times, because I was trying to get him to remember a key word. I was like, Dad, remember this word because I'm going to ask you tomorrow, and I need you to remember this word. I need to prove that I've been talking to you out of the body. Because I would get out, I would see him out of his body. I've seen my mother out of her body. I've seen lots of people out of their body. It's happening all the time. You just don't realize or remember what's going on. So at those experiences, and I'm sure there's lots of others, but I can bring those to memory now, I would just think like, all right, Dad. And then I would just be right in front of where he is and talk to him, but there was no travel. So that's what I'm calling indirect, in the sense that you don't realize that you are leaving. Third eye projections are fascinating. And this has started happening to me again, not a projection, just being candid about what I'm experiencing, but the inner visions and all the cool stuff that happens as you focus here a lot, the veils start to dissolve. So first you'll start seeing content in your third eye region, images, visions, prophetic visions, lights, sounds, and eyeball. A lot of you have seen, that's usually in the early stages of blue pearl. When you see the blue pearl and like the waves of light that come out from it, then you're starting to tap into the vibrations. So how do you really do that? Just focus here and just keep all your attention there. So there's a lot to be said about the third eye, obviously. But what we're talking about here, the third eye projection, this will open, like literally when they say the third eye is open, it's real. There's not any other word to describe it. It opens. And it opens into other dimensions that occupy the same space that you're in now. So just like the radio, there's all the radio waves here now and Wi-Fi, internet here now, but you're not attuned to those frequencies. As you focus on level 2 energetics and the level 3 practices and the movement up and into the third eye, that'll start to open, you'll see into the other dimensions. But then when you start doing soul travel, not etheric travel, well, the words are always fuzzy, but it's not really etheric or astral travel, it's more soul travel. So you as soul, you don't directly float out of your body. You go into your third eye, into other dimensions, and your physical body will drop away, but you'll still be seeing people and places, beings, other, things happening, fairies, angels, whatever you're experiencing. But you did it by going into that dimension. I do more of that stuff. This is what I'm about to say is beyond all these teachings. It's why I don't astral project anymore, really. Well, there's just nothing better than Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So like that's what you do. And it includes all of this in such a way that there's nowhere to go. And there's nothing else to be. The out-of-body experiences have illusory stages in them. It's not that you're not really leaving your body, but the idea that you're a separate individual leaving your body is still an illusion. But you should do it. It's like, really, just keep doing it. But trust me, there's much deeper stages, because I'm teaching you stuff I was doing in my early 20s and my 30s. So now at 47, things have advanced, and eventually we can talk about that. But for now, the third eye projections are awesome, and it's more of an inner movement than an outer movement. But you can do both. Just like you can ascend and descend, you can go out to God, you can go into God, because God is everywhere, or into the other dimensions. Time travel is fascinating. I've only done that a few times, but I've done it enough and proved it to myself that I do it to say that it's real. So I'll talk to you about it briefly. When the vibrations, it's a question from before. We can go back to that later. All right, so time travel. When the vibrations are really strong, when you're really good at that, then you'll know how to rotate your consciousness to look through the back of your head. You can rotate in your body while the vibrations are there. Right now, you're 100% locked into your eyes. You try to turn, but you move your eyes, or you try to turn, but you move your head. You're totally locked into your body. You're in coincidence with your physical body. When the vibrations are really strong, and I'll talk about them later, because it's not, I think people think they feel it, but they really don't. It's just a really advanced, intense experience. When what I call the vibrations are there strong enough, then you are just, like I'm thinking of like a slippy slide. When you're a kid and you're sliding down the long plastic water, you put water on a piece of plastic and you slide down. It's like that smooth. You're just able to whoop, get right out. Kind of like if you're in a really good car, like a good sports car, and you got the big side bolsters, you can't move very much, and then you got a good seatbelt, you're in the steering wheel, you're locked in the car. But when you take the seatbelt off and remove those side bolsters and open the door, then you can just get right out pretty easy, right? When you leave your body, it's kind of like that. It's like, wow, someone just opened the doors, and you'll know. You're like, huh. I mean, you might freak out at first, but eventually you'll get over those initial freak out stages, and that's how it'll work. It'll be like, well, body asleep, mind awake, great. And then it'll settle down. Next night you'll try again. You get body asleep, mind awake. You can do that for a while, and eventually you'll get the vibrations. You're like, oh, whoa, it's vibrations. You get so excited, and they'll go away, and then they won't be strong enough, and then they won't be moving the right direction, but then one day you'll be like, oh, I got it. And I'll teach you as much as I can about how to do this. Then they're all vibrating the way they need to. And then stage 3, so stage 1, body asleep, mind awake. You got to get that, or you can't do these direct projections or the time travel projection. Body asleep, mind awake. 2, vibrational state at the level it needs to be for a projection. Once it's there, step 3 is separation. So when you rotate your consciousness, you can roll out to the side. You can feel like, you're in your astral body and somersault backwards as if your astral feet fling over your head. And quite often there's a wall behind your head, so you'll flip through the wall and be floating outside, which is really cool. I can tell you a bunch of those stories. So with time travel, eventually you'll rotate and you'll experience looking through the back of your head, which is really cool. It's like you're looking through the bed backwards instead of looking up at the ceiling. And then you could float up, so you'd be looking down at your physical body. That's how a lot of my projections occur. I just rotate 180 degrees, float out, but I'm not looking at the ceiling, I'm looking down at the body, or at the ceiling, or sometimes 360 in all directions. because there's a lot to be said about what are you seeing and how do you perceive. Like, what do you see? What do you hear? Are you smelling? Are you tasting? Are you touching? You know, what's going on when you're out of your body? So we can talk about all that stuff. Now, and I'm going to be sure to leave time for Q&A and discussion today. So we're only going to maybe go for another 20 minutes. And then that'll be as far as we go tonight. Then we'll just open it up to Q&A. Okay, so time travel. Instead of, I'm sure you could do it lots of different ways, but how I've done it is instead of just rotating and floating out, I started just spinning really fast, like I was in a blender. Like I was the content of a blender and the body is like the blender itself. So you're spinning around really fast. And I don't know why I was doing that, but I could do it. It was fun. And then the vibration settled and I locked back in. I'm like, huh, weird. What was that? Next night, not like a month later. It's like next night I put the body, sleep, mind, awake, invoke the vibrations. And it was so easy to do then. God, it was so easy to do. Invoke the vibrations and then spin. And maybe I did like once real fast again, and that was it. Next night, I do the same thing again, but I managed to get out of my body, and I made it like 3 feet away, and then I felt the body's gravitational pull. It's not gravity, but whatever it is, it sucks you back in, and you'll know it. You'll feel it. It's like unmistakable. Like, oh man, I feel the body pulling me, damn it, and then you just have to surrender to it, and you're back in. But then the next night, it was like the 3rd or 4th attempt. I didn't know what I was doing, but I spun really fast, shot out of my body, and I won't tell you the whole story for the sake of time, like time right now, but I was back in time, and I verified this. I researched, and I was like, yeah, everything I saw, which was not what was there then, was there in the past, and I've done it multiple times, and I've proven I can do it. I can't say I can do it all the time. This is super advanced stuff that doesn't, like I said, you can't just do it every day of your life for various reasons. But that's what time travel was. I did experiment rotating, so that was counterclockwise. Then I experienced clockwise, and I guess I went to the future, but it's hard to tell because, you know, if it hasn't happened yet. And then I'm thinking about stuff that I experienced in my 20s. Did it happen? Yes, there was like major world stuff that had happened. So I'm convinced I've done both. I've definitely had prophetic visions of the future and therefore prophetic out-of-body experiences of the future, but not a whole lot. And, you know, whatever, you guys can play with that. Other introductory topics here. Verifiable projections, like I said, you can go to other places and verify you were there, or you can go see the past and verify what you saw was actually there through the historical records or whatever. But going to other people's, so the better way to project is you go to a person, not a place, or you go to God, not a place, like not the astral plane, but God. So when you're out of your body, you want to have a target destination. That's either going to be a person, or it could be a place or a level, a dimension. You can kind of go where you want, but you really can't go where you want a lot of the times. Not only do you not know how, but when you're out of your body, quite often higher guidance has better plans for you. You're like, I'm going to go visit my mom or dad. I can go visit a friend. And God's like, oh man, you are missing out on something so great. So my advice is when you get out of your body, just have a word or a name for God. Just say God, you know, or Christ, whatever you say, and go. But be willing to surrender. You're always better off surrendering, which leads to assisted projections. But anyway, just finalizing verifiable. You can absolutely do an experiment, and I'd like eventually, you know, for us to be doing this. We're actually founding right now a research division of Anahat Education Group called Anahat Research Division. And we're bringing people on board who are familiar with research and, you know, researching hypnotherapy and healing, the deeper healing stuff. So if anybody's interested, you know, reach out to me. But anyway, I would like to verify, we've done a lot of remote viewing experiments in the hypnotherapy school. We verified we can do those. And now we need to do it like scientifically. And I'd like to verify the out-of-body experiences for those who are actively projecting, which I'm not, at least, you know, today. We'll see what happens over the next few weeks. All right, so anyway, it'd be great to verify and actually really show that we can do this. These are real, and I can question myself all the time. Maybe it's all an illusion, but I know it's not. I know in my heart of heart it's not. When I'm practicing meditation, out-of-body stuff right now, I know I can do it once the conditions are right. And again, it usually takes me 2 weeks to attune to make that happen. And I was saying that in my 20s, so it might take 3 or 4 weeks if I keep up with it. Anyway, assisted projections. You need to be ready that when you start to get out of your body, you're not alone. And that can be kind of scary. You know, if you think of somebody standing in your bedroom at night, you got to get used to that idea. You know, if you're going to open your astral eyes, or as a young boy, when I was about 10 years old or so, I could see ghosts very easy, what I would call ghosts then, I would now call astral beings. I would see my mother out of her body when she was coming to check on me and my sister. Like, her body was asleep, but she would leave her body, float around the house, and I would see her. And I verified that one day. My sister verified that she saw my mother as well. And she always wore the same blue robe, or blue nightgown, or whatever that was. When she was out of her body, that's what her etheric body looked like. So I would see that. That wasn't too bad because it was my mom. And I 10 years old is scary. And I guess I was seeing through my third eye, but it sure seemed like my 2 physical eyes. It's just, real like vision of the etheric level. But I saw lots of beings in my room that I would just call ghosts. I was so freaking scared. And so I blinked. I'm like, no, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. And I just closed that down until my 20s when it opened up again. And I intentionally started opening up again through spiritual practice. So it's very real. I could do it as a kid. I could do it in my 20s. There's no doubt you can do it. But the assisted projection is really important to understand that when you start leaving, there's other beings there. That you might feel hands underneath you lifting you up. Don't all of a sudden go, oh my God, they're gray aliens. I think a lot of alien abduction experiences, honestly, are just out-of-body experiences. And I've done a lot of hypnotic regression to people who claim they're abductees. And a lot of the time they're reporting an out-of-body experience, and there's no aliens. There's other beings. And they might call them alien, but I would just call them non-physical beings. They're not the gray aliens, with the eyes and the little mouth. And those are all the scary things. But the assisted being, the non-physical guides, this is called them spirit guides. They communicate telepathically, just like the gray aliens. Again, this isn't about aliens, just to prepare you for encountering other beings when you start leaving your body. So non-physical beings, you might feel their hands kind of pulling your astral hands out of your body, or underneath you, lifting you up. One of my experiences, I couldn't quite get out in the early days, and I was in college, I was like 22, 21 or something, and the vibrations were there, and I kind of knew I should be able to get out. I could intuitively feel that, and I moved, my physical body moved, and the being right next to me who was lifting me out said, no, not like that. I mean, it was like that. It was like English. Like, no, not like that. And then he pulled me out of my body. And I didn't see him, but I could sure feel and hear him. And it felt like a he. But there have been like feminine beings, spirit guides, angelic beings who have been there helping me. There have been male beings helping me. And they've all been benevolent. I've never encountered anything truly negative or nothing demonic. But you're getting to know me. I'm not going to use a word to label me, but I'm more advanced in this stuff, obviously, right? I've done a lot of purification work and spiritual growth. If you leave your body and you're filled with anger and fear, and you don't want to be out of your body. So like I said, you want to be really emotionally pure first before you get out. You want to do a lot of spiritual practice and maybe a lot of hypnotherapy and breath work, rebirthing, holotropic breath work, integrated breathing. You want to do that kind of stuff before you start leaving your body. And like I said, to earn the vibrational state, the true powerful Kundalini energy, you have to purify all your energy blocks. So, we do that. That's why we do hypnotherapy the way I do it, in interpersonal hypnotherapy and breath work. So clear your blocks, meditate a lot. When you start leaving your body, you should only encounter beings of light and love. And you want to affirm that. Only beings of light and love are allowed herein, is what I usually say. All right, let's we got 10 more minutes, and then we're going to stop wherever we're at and go to Q&A. Astral sex. So level 3 does deal with more advanced sexual energy practices because you still have a physical body. And I was experiencing this the other night. I'll tell you a little nothing too intimate, of course, but I was really, really high in the higher chakras and the out of body practices. I was not really so much in my body. I had both eyes on God, just going to the highest, everything I've been teaching you to do. Touching upon what's happening. I'm going. I was focusing there. And then I felt like this lower chakra desire of, but if it was like that lower voice was like, but if you go up and out, you're not going to get to have the pleasure of physical sexual experience. How good your body can feel at times when you're in your body and it's really sexual and it's really erotic and it's really turned on. So that was like an instant affirmation of level 3. And then I started going into level 3 practice. And again, stuff I haven't talked to you about yet, because advanced sexual energy teachings are being able to integrate super high levels of mysticism with tantric levels of sexual energy. So you don't want to deny the sexual energy, because when you're out of your body, there's a lot of sexual energy going on. First of all, a lot of my out-of-body experiences when I leave the body, I'm not in the body, and the out-of-body time doesn't have to be sexual in any way. But then when I come back to the body quite often has an erection. It's really interesting. And it's really pleasant. Like you come back to a really healthy, but kind of wigged out, but often a very pleasantly sexually aroused body. So great. That energy is there, and it's going to be there quite often when you come back to your body, from my experience. But now let's talk about out of the body just a little bit of astral sex. Well, the highest is union with God. And again, that's all you focus on. So a little bit of how to do that. You really just, Anahat isn't its own religion. So if you have your own spiritual path, right? You're a Christian, you're a Buddhist, you're a Hare Krishna, whatever your path is, keep doing that, right? If you're a devotee of Krishna, keep meditating on Krishna, keep loving Krishna. In Vaishnavism, where you're in love with Radha Krishna, the masculine, feminine of God. Krishna is more masculine, Radha is feminine, but Krishna has strong divine androgynous qualities. But anyway, as you're focused on Krishna or Radha Krishna, you don't want it to be sexual, but it kind of is, because this is your beloved, and when you're visualizing them with form, like if I think of Radha with form, Radha's the divine feminine. She's absolutely gorgeous, and who wouldn't want to experience union with that? But that can get into the sacrilegious kind of thing that Westerners don't really like. But Vaishnavism, the deep teachings, and the tantric levels of Vaishnava practice are all about making love with Radha Krishna. Be more like with Radha or more with Krishna, whatever your thing is. But as you're focusing on them, what's really there is not sex, but love. The energy is just pure love. You just love the highest. So if you're a Christian, you just love and love and love Christ. I can't tell you who your Ishta Devta is, your chosen aspect of God. So, again, it might be Christ, it might be Buddha, it might be Krishna, whoever it is, you just focus on whatever the highest is. Now, if you're more impersonal, then you're focusing on the impersonal absolute pure consciousness, which we'll talk about later on, which is basically focusing on asmita samadhi when out of the body. But the little tip I'll give you is it's through devotional love that we fully ascend. So we take the class on ascension and cosmic consciousness to help to prepare you for those highest level experiences. The highest ascension, there might be other ways to go, I guess there are, but the highest, fastest, best way is devotional love. When you're going towards God, when you're flying towards God as God, the one thing in your mind is just, I love you, I love you. And you will. You'll know you love your source. You've always loved your source. You never stop loving your source. It's that energy that takes you there. But in between that highest experience and the physical plane are all sorts of sexual experience or unification experiences. So the really cool ones are sex with astral beings, astral sex. Now that could be anybody who's out of their body. It's has nothing to do with marriage on the physical plane. You're most likely, well, not necessarily, but you could be very well monogamous, and I respect that, and good for you. But out of your body, those kind of ways of being don't mean as much. So when you meet somebody out of your body, you can give a big hug, but you can merge. And depending on the nature of the relationship, not every relationship is like this, but some relationships could be very deeply astral sexual. It's not like what physical sex is, but it's better. You just, you don't have sexual organs, you don't have bodily fluids. You have, like, in Paramahansa Yogananda's book, I'm going to read to you from him in a moment, in one of his writings on Autobiography of a Yogi, Sri Yukteswar, his guru, comes back from the astral plane and talks to Yogananda, and they call them life-trons, but in Sanskrit they're anu and par-anu, atoms and subatomic particles, but they're just the subatomic particles of creation. Your astral body is made of these life-trons, whatever you want to call them, and when two astral beings merge, the life-trons merge, that's better than physical sex. So, you can have sexual levels of union on all levels when it's appropriate and harmonious. All right, that's astral sex, a little bit on that. Nice to get you excited to leave your body. Cosmic projections, like I said, we'll talk about that in its own class, level 3, helping to prepare you for cosmic conscious experiences. That's just briefly galaxies, planets, supernova, like just, if you want to read about it, Yogananda in Autobiography of a Yogi, he talks about that. He wrote a poem about one of his samadhi cosmic conscious experiences. No words, we'll just leave that for that class. And then same with God consciousness, the highest levels of ascension. That's worth its own teachings as well. All right, let's just see where we're at. That's good. You can read through the whole workbook on your own. I reserve the right to teach at whatever pace we do, and just to feel like I've delivered all the information I'm supposed to. There's a lot here. There's more than I realized once I started teaching. So we'll see how that goes as far as how long it takes. Let me just read to you something before we go to Q&A time. So this book is the covers off, the dust jacket, The Wine of the Mystic, the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, a spiritual interpretation by Paramahansa Yogananda. I'm a huge fan of Omar Khayyam's The Rubaiyat. I memorized the whole poem. I collect them. I have, 20, 30 copies of the Rubaiyat here in my house, and there's others, I'm sure, in the school's library. I think I brought a lot of them to my house. But anyway, I'm really into the poem. There's 2 quatrains, and I won't introduce the whole poem to you, but quatrain 31, and I'll just read it even though I did memorize all these. So this is about the chakra system. Up from Earth's center, through the 7th gate I rose, and on the throne of Saturn's saints. I'll translate a little, I'll explain a little. I rose up from Earth's center, through the 7th gate I rose, and on the throne of Saturn saint, and many knots unraveled by the road, but not the knot of human death and fate. So what he's talking about, like the human death and fate, that's just the law of karma. We're not going to talk about that right now. But he's talking about ascending the consciousness up the chakra system, and the next quatrain alluding to merging into God beyond the beyond. But Yogananda's discussion on this is really worth it. I used to always read this to my out-of-body travel classes. The next quatrain, 32. There was a door to which I found no key. There was a veil past which I could not see. Some little talk a while of me and thee there seemed, and then no more of thee and me. All right, some little talk a while of me and thee there seemed, a little bit of lover and beloved, but then no more of thee and me, merging into God, beyond the beyond, absolute bliss consciousness. And, really in the stages of enlightenment, until that occurs, it just hasn't occurred, right? There's just this highest level. I just want to read to you a few of the paragraphs. From there, then we'll do Q&A. And then I can't do too much more because it's super warm in this room and the AC is just not cutting in a horribly hot Southern California right now. But let me share with you a little bit here. So Yogananda's writing. In deep meditation, I transcended the sensory perceptions of the body and experience divine realization by lifting my life force and consciousness upward through the yoga chakras, the cerebral spinal centers, from the earth vibration in the coccyx, tailbone, to the thousand-petal lotus in the brain. Then he said, ascending the spinal highway, I had unraveled in each of the 6 lower chakras the knots, sanskars, of life and consciousness that tied me to the body. Thus, when I entered the 7th center, the thousand-petal lotus, I was momentarily free in cosmic consciousness. But here's the paragraph, I believe. I haven't read this in a while. But this experience in meditation did not completely liberate me. Because of my karma, the results of my past actions, I could not escape permanently into spirit. To sunder karmic bonds and conquer death forever, I had first to learn by deeper meditation to consciously go in and out of the body at will. Okay? To consciously go in and out of the body at will. This mastery and the wisdom of divine consciousness it brings frees the soul permanently from delusion. Then the soul can leave not only the physical body, but the astral, and he says causal, but it's just semantics. He says, the soul can not only leave the physical body, but the astral and causal encasements as well, and merge in omnipresent spirit, a fully liberated soul. And if we had time and I had the voice, I'd love to read the rest of these, but I'll just give you one more paragraph that speaks to all this. Which one is it? After I had withdrawn my consciousness and life force, switching off the lamps of the muscles, senses, heart, and the cerebral spinal chakras. We'll talk about that more when we revisit Ashtanga Yoga and the term Pratyahara. The cerebral spinal chakras, my soul perception reached the 7th center, right, just focusing the highest, the thousand-petal lotus in the cerebral region. I stood at the door of infinity, unable to find the key to its mysteries, the way to complete freedom in spirit beyond the physical, astral, and causal encasements. My soul, reaching even this high state of attainment, could not penetrate the veil of the inner light of superconsciousness, Christ consciousness, and cosmic consciousness, beyond which lay the sanctum sanctorum, the holy of holies, the abode of the unmanifest beloved, the absolute. There was a little talk or a conscious intuitional vibratory exchange between soul, me, and spirit, thee. And then, in deeper ecstasy, I became united with the indescribable infinite. In that oneness with the absolute, there remained no separate existence of my individual soul, a tiny bubble of laughter. I am become the sea of mirth itself. So that's a little bit of that is taken from his poem Samadhi in Autobiography of a Yogi. But when I first read that, I was already doing that. It was such a beautiful confirmation of leaving the physical, because I didn't really understand. In Buddhism, I told you, Buddha was not big in out-of-body travel. I'm not going to explain why, and I still affirm that we should be doing it here. But Buddha was kind of working to skip those stages, and he was a Hindu reformer. But what we're just read and the stuff we're talking about is largely yogic practice. And when I heard Yogananda saying, no, exactly that, leave your body, leave your etheric body, leave your astral body, leave the causal, they used the word causal body, and merge into spirit. It's like, oh, good, that is the right path. And then I went to India. I was studying with masters there in the Himalayas, and I was asking them about all these experiences. And I don't know, what is the word? I've never seen this in scripture. And then they would point out the scriptures to me and the words. I was like, oh, that was amazing to realize. So I feel all of this stuff is 100% real. There's nothing higher than just putting all your attention on God, samadhi, out-of-body experiences, and you keep doing this practice, this is where it's going to go. All right, let's go back to full screen. All right, super warm room. Question answer time, and then however long you guys want to talk, we'll cut it off at the 3-hour mark. But let me just reset the camera. It looks a little blurry. All right, maybe better. Okay, so feel free to type questions now and anything you want to share, whatever. And then somebody did type, I had some difficulty visualizing the tetrahedron grids. Is there any three-dimensional picture to help with this? Yeah, I showed them in the last class. There's in the training manual. And then if you just Google, under Google Images, star tetrahedron, then that's essentially really what you're doing, right? So you're visualizing at the tailbone, the base of a descending tetrahedron. Right? And then you just need to Google a tetrahedron or star tetrahedron. And then, yeah, start to get a sense of, right, because we talk about a descending triangle, but also it's in 3 dimensions. So instead of 2 lines, instead of 2 lines coming down, we have a 3rd line coming down, and that forms a flat triangle on the top, right? So if you imagine the shoulders, that's 2 points, but now we can imagine a point in the front, or it could be a point in the back. But again, only like visualizing 3 points at this level. And then those 3 points go down to the tailbone. So yeah, you just want to look in the training manual or the video last time of images of a tetrahedron, and that's where you're working to visualize there. Don't be too concerned about being exact. The reason for level 2, it's a very helpful, very useful transition to all of the level 3 stuff. So if I just want to be totally grounded, totally functional, I'll just do level 1, and I don't even think about level 2. But if I want to start getting into the higher mystical stuff, I'll predominantly do level 2. When I really want just 100% only God, I don't have to think about anything in this physical world, I don't have to deal with relationships or money or career, anything external, and I can do that for days and days on end without having to worry about whether I sleep or not or how I look or anything, then only level 3 teachings and thoughts. And not necessarily, well, yeah, no, we're still dealing with the sexual energy, but in the level 3 way. So yeah, just keep working the focus on the subtle grids if you're working the move to level 3. All right, I'm not seeing any typing. I'm giving you guys a chance, though. I'll be silent for a moment to encourage questions. And if you're all good, I'm good. Super hot room, hungry, tired, but I'll stay with you guys as long as you want. Somebody said, thank you so much for sharing all of this, Matthew. I appreciate you and the teaching so much. You're very welcome. Thank you. Thank you for giving so much. Yeah, I have to. I gotta get this out and recorded during this lifetime. Somebody said, I believe I experience third eye projection a lot, pretty much every night, and less often prophetic experiences while sleeping. I experienced some pretty epic historical events around 6 months before they happened. Yeah, right on. So, right, there's always more because God is infinite. There's levels of reality way beyond the physical. And yeah, just if you're already open to it, just keep going because like there might be visions, but third eye projections, you'll literally feel you as soul will float up in and you'll be flying in other dimensions, not just looking at them, but literally flying around in other places. And it's a complete out-of-body experience, but it happens through the third eye. So if that's already quite open, I keep nurturing that. But quite often the vibrations are present when my third eye is so open that I can leave through it. And get a cough drop in there. Yeah, so keep practicing that. We'll talk about it more in the future. All right, I'm only seeing other thank yous, so I think we're good for tonight. Somebody said no question at this point, simply trusting and enjoying the process, and thank you, you're very welcome. Yeah, you know, maybe it's because of the online medium. The reason I'm giving you time now is when I do these classes in person, my students are asking me questions left and right. So I am sure people have thoughts and I'm very open to giving you a chance for that. Somebody said, my dreaming has certainly increased and my ability to remember the dreams and journeying in meditation. So here's a little tip. You can use hypnosis, and we have a recording on this, and this person asked is a graduate of the school. So if you're not using it, you can go into the Transpersonal Archives. I'm pretty sure it's there. It's a bonus recording on lucid dreaming. You program yourself to lucid dream, but then a very easy way to leave your body is from a lucid dream. So usually it goes in those three phases. Dreams get more vivid, then you can start lucid dreaming where you become conscious in the dream, but it's still a dream. It's just you're conscious in the dream. You can use hypnosis to program that to occur. But then, and I don't know if I have a hypnotic programming for this, but if you guys ask me someday, I can make one. A hypnotic programming that programs you to have a lucid dream, but then to astral project from your lucid dream. I was doing that a lot in my early 20s as well. I would program in, tonight you lucid dream, you wake up in a dream, then you think a trigger phrase, which is leave now. So in the lucid dream, I just think leave now. And then one of two things would always happen. I'd be back in my body, the vibrations would be there, because I'm dreaming, right? So my body's asleep. But then when I'm back, and that's like the theta activity. So then when I'm back in the body, the vibrations were there, and then I'd be able to float out in a direct projection. Not dreaming, but using the dream state to know that my body's asleep. It's like, oh, I'm lucid dreaming. Okay, the body must be asleep. Leave now. And then I would come back to an asleep body, and that's one way to experience body asleep, mind awake. The other thing that happens when you say leave now in the lucid dream is it goes into a legitimate full-fledged out-of-body experience where you're just out of your body, out of the dream sense of body or whatever's happening there. Like you're not in the dream anymore. You're actually out of your body just by doing that. So I program the phrase leave now. I use a lot of trigger phrases when out of the body to help to cause better experience to happen. Sometimes you're out of your body and your astral eyes are closed. You can't see anything, it's dark, but you're not in a body. And if you try to open your eyes, like you're used to doing, you'll snap back into your body, and it's very shocking because you're looking right through your open eyes, and that's horrible. So I program myself to say, astral eyes open. And then, if I know I'm out of my body, but I can't see, astral eyes open. And then the eyes will go that way, or they'll open from, like I said, from the top down, which is really weird, but they do. So yeah, there's trigger phrases you can use when out of the body. Yeah, somebody asked, the lucid dream recording in the hypnosis school. I think so. I'm pretty sure that's why I said it, but I could be wrong. But I can always remake those in the future. So just ask. Great. Someone said I was out of my body one time, super high up, when I was falling back to my body. It was fast and I got scared, but as soon as I realized and believed I was going to be okay, and the person I met in the other realm loved me, my body started to slow down, or you, in your astral body, start to slow down dramatically. And I entered back in my body very gently. When I was back in, I was out of breath. Yeah. Your body reflects what's happening mentally, emotionally all the time. So while you're out of your body, coming back in scared is not a good thing. Coming in too fast, not a good thing. You want to program yourself, and those audio recordings do that. They program you like a hand slipping back into a glove. You want to feel like you're coming in, like all the way into your arms, all the way into your legs. Like get back into your hands, get back into your feet. If you've ever done a yoga class or meditation, you know what it's like to feel ungrounded, like, oh, I didn't want to come back, that was so good. Out-of-body experience is like 100 times more intense because you're literally out of your body. And to come back into the thing, it's not really desirable all the time. Yeah, you don't always want to be back in there. And yeah, coming back too fast is very shocking. So program yourself, you come in slowly, gently, safely. Once I was out of my body and I was falling really fast towards the ground on the astral plane. I don't know what would have happened, but I was clearly falling faster than I wanted to. So I visualized like a parachute. I didn't see it, but I just now as a paraglider, I have a much better sense of what I visualized and the right chute. But back then, before I knew anything about that, I was falling, I visualized a parachute, and I landed nice and safe and continued on. You wouldn't need that. Like I was flying and I was flapping my arms I told you about. I've flown with my arms in front of me like Superman. You don't need to do that, but it's just like it's like a mental cue to help to get what you want to occur. Like I don't need to have hands to send light to someone to heal them, but I could visualize that and cause the energy to flow in that way. All right, nice. Thank you, everybody. All right, I guess we're good. Feel free if you have any questions during this time, shoot me an email, if you need to, if you're in this initial training for sure, and I'll be happy to help you as we go through. I don't know how long it'll take to convey everything that I know about all this stuff, but I'll be honored to share it with you guys. And yeah, just plan on the next few weeks. We're going to be focusing on this highest level of stuff. All right, so thank you all. I'll stop recording. I'm still right here. And I wish you a wonderful evening. I think we covered everything. Well, hopefully we did. All right, good night all.